Hey, this is Brent,
Hey, this is Jordan.
What's up? This is Matt.
Hey, this is Sean.
and this is the Digital Ascent Podcast.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to episode 0014. We have Matt, Jordy, Brent, and myself, Sean. And today we are going to talk about some current events. So we've got the Reddit API things, and then we also have ChatGPT being used in a court case as a citation. So, and then after that, we'll be doing Windows updates and updates in general and why they suck. So, just putting it bluntly. So I guess,
Harsh.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's not untrue. So it should be a fun topic. Um, and, this is going to be a bit off the cuff just because I enjoy off the cuff. I feel like we get better conversations out of it anyway. So, but we'll go ahead and start with Reddit. So I'm sure by the time this goes live, mostly everybody will have been at least exposed somewhat to what's going on with Reddit. But basically, what's happening is they're forcing a really large sum for their API use. And so it's forcing a lot of, it's not accessibility, though that is part of it. I think they came back and said that they're not enforcing it for the accessibility ones, but the main like readers, so like Apollo
the
and some other
third-party
ones
apps.
that, right. And basically it's big up in arms about it. There's a whole bunch of subs that did a blackout and basically in protest and saying, this is outrageous. I'm not going to use Reddit because of this, all these different things. So, and then you have the other side where they go, well, I don't really care. I don't really use those things. And I'm in the middle camp personally with this. I don't like the fact that they're basically going for a money grab and saying, well, if you're going to use our API, you're going to have to pay us like bajillions of dollars in order to do it. And some of this is in relation to, I was reading something, and I need to go back and find the source, but I think they're going public soon, or there's talks of them going public. I can't remember specifically, but it's basically like,
I think
we need to
you're
make this
correct there,
profitable.
Sean. Yeah, I heard a little snippet, and this is part of what's added to confusion for me as far as this whole topic is concerned. Is like what I had heard, and I couldn't tell you the source, but I'll look up here to see if we can add something to show notes. But as what you threw out here is that Reddit may be looking to go public, and so they're. I don't know if this is a way for them to like. Is it more profitable? I don't understand how how this works, because if they're charging up the wazoo and nobody wants to use it, is this like an Elon like Twitter thing where they don't really have anywhere else to go, so they're just gonna pay the money and they're trying to like brute force it? Or I feel like this is kind of dumb. Yes, please.
Yeah, Sean, can I hop in
Yeah,
here?
go ahead. Absolutely.
All right. So, from my perspective, the big problem with third-party apps is that they prevent ad revenue from being generated. One of the primary advantages, in my opinion, from a third-party app is that you can pay for the premium version, and guess what? Ads no longer make it to your Reddit feed, and that's wonderful for the user, but it's not very profitable for the company. As a company is considering, let's just say they are considering going, public. In my opinion, if I was running a company, I would be interested in ensuring every single user is paying their admission price, and their admission price is their data, it's their email address, it's their clicks, their posts, their upvotes, downvotes, so on and so forth. And because all of that feeds into ads, right? And if I had a company like Reddit and I was looking at ads and how's it profitable, I would say that I get more insight into what a person's into than any other social media company does, because they are like personally selecting where they go. And so it gives them a unique position to target ads better than but many other um social media companies, at least in my
Right.
opinion. And if you're going to purchase a company, the that's a social media company, I feel like it's a pretty reasonable question to ask. How many users are using it? All right. Now, how many users are we harvesting data from successfully? Okay. Now, how many users are, eyeballs on ads and then click, and even it's more importantly, probably the click through ratio on ads, right? Because that's probably what a more meaningful metric is, not just how many eyes have seen it, but how many people click through, and even more importantly, how much
Right.
landed in a sale. And
So this is
so
this is
yeah,
coming
that's my
down
perspective.
to it's coming down to the Reddit needs to make themselves look better if they are
Theoretically.
going or if they are going public. So they need to make themselves a little better, and part of what can help contribute to that is making sure that
Hmm.
all of their users are actually using their website so that they're getting the eyeballs on
Hmm.
ads and all of these. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that makes a little
Remember,
bit.
I mean,
All about controlling the funnel, man.
Yeah.
remember when you go to a social media site, when you don't pay for a service, you are the product, and your data is the product. And when you short circuit that by using some third party app, then you you become a less valuable product, right? And so that's what I think. I think that Reddick is trying to improve their product that they sell, right? Or that they ingest perhaps and
Right.
then sell. And on the other side of it, I've been a third party Reddit app user for as long as I've been on Reddit. I've used the Reddit app a few times, but whatever. I like my third party apps. I find the ads to be too much for me. I do not like. And um for me personally, this has caused me to go find other sources of media. I've actually significantly decreased my Reddit usage since the blackout. Instead, I signed up for a
Which is what I
Feedly
was going to
account.
ask.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
are you
Yeah.
completely Matt, do you think this is
Mm,
like and Brent and Sean, I'd be interested to hear from, are you guys like regular third-party Reddit app users, or were you main how much does this affect your Reddit use, I guess is the main question.
Certainly reduces it for me. I use the Apollo, and
Yep,
he
me
was
too.
saying it was going to end up costing him $20 million a year to run that
Yeah.
platform.
Yeah, that's
And
what I heard, is that they were charging some ridiculous number for access to
Yeah,
the
it's
Yeah.
absolutely
API.
And
Holy
yeah,
crap.
insane.
when now it's like $10,000 or $20,000 or maybe even less. I think he said he pays his Imager like $160 a month.
Okay, so that's really the bottom
So
line is unless you're
yeah,
paying the $20
it's
million,
about money.
you're not
He
using a
it,
third. Holy crap.
well, so check it out. So Reddit's saying that's how much we value. In my opinion, they're saying that's how much we value the first party ad revenue. That's how I interpret that statement, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's
I mean,
some
it would have to be,
some
right?
I mean, maybe there's some amount of like get bullied in there too. What I would say is for me, like I said, it has decreased. I went out and I set up a Feedly account, and I've been working on setting up my own information feed. That was always my primary use of Reddit, was trying to figure out what's going on in the world. So I'm setting up my own personal information feed through Feedly, and I'm seeing at least some success in there. Reddit is still better at the moment, but I think I can curate it over time, and I'll be satisfied.
Okay.
And I'll
Sick.
give less
All
craps
right.
about Reddit.
Matt and Sean, what's up? Are you guys, or I'm sorry, Brent and Sean, are you guys going the Matt route, or is this just like, oh, whatever? And I know Brent, you've been like super active on Twitter lately, so maybe is that like a 1-to-1 swap for you, or
I mean, it's different for me. Reddit for me has always been more like I've less conversational on Reddit for me, and it's more information finding.
right?
Because I feel like it's
Mhm.
always been
Yep.
the source of a lot of stuff. Like every time a new NVIDIA driver comes out, I'm on the NVIDIA subreddit because there's a couple of guys that run all the new builds through the gamut, and I'm like, should I upgrade? Should I not? I'm gonna let this guy determine it for me. Why would I do it when someone else has already done it? Like
Right, of course.
it's perfect for our line of work too, in terms of finding stuff to do with any sort of tech. It's perfect for tonight's topic when we're talking about updates, and we'll probably
Mhm.
focus on Windows updates a little bit and
Mhm.
0 days and all
Yep.
that. Reddit is
Mhm.
awesome to find what other people think
Fantastic.
about an update. So it's gonna stink. I mean, my personal use will definitely drop. I could still see me going over there for like more professional stuff to kind of like get
Mhm.
information. But the
Yeah.
other factor of that is are other people going to do the same? Or are we going to
Right.
lose some of those key contributors to the platform? I don't know.
Okay. Good stuff.
Yeah, I would say for
Sean.
me,
Sean. Yeah.
yeah. So for me, I've always used the base app. Period. I just mostly because I use it recreationally. So it's not really. It doesn't impact me in any significant way. What I don't like and what I'm worried about is what Brent just mentioned is the impact to the community for the people that it does hit super hard. There's a lot of talk
Right.
of moderators being absolutely like they're just like, I'm gone, I'm out. No, if you're gonna do this, nah. And so you have, I don't know. I'll probably still use it to a degree, but I mostly use it for inane stuff, right? And maybe some troubleshooting things. So, but I'd be curious to see. And I'm also curious how they calculated the inherent risk of making this move because they couldn't have done it just willy nilly, right? Like they had to calculate it and
Heard
say,
that.
like
Yeah,
Matt
no
said,
kidding.
what percentage of this are we going to lose and how much do we care? And obviously, like Matt said, they
Mhm.
valued it at enough that they're like, screw it. We'll just go ahead and do it and we'll just deal with it. Like it's worth the ad revenue or whatever it is, whatever metrics they're looking at. So, but to answer your question, no, it doesn't really change for me, but it does put me on a bit of a like questioning what is it going to look like, 6 months from now? Like, are people just going to be like, well, I guess we'll forget about it in 6 months and then everybody starts coming back to it? You know what I mean? Like, may
More
not.
likely that.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's certainly interesting though, because that, like you mentioned, that price hike is astronomical for some of these people. So it's like, geez, man, okay. I mean, if you want to do this, it also makes me worried for the future. Like, where else are they going to do it, and what else are they going to do that might impact how Reddit functions? Or they may buy out some of these developers and be like, hey, yo, I'm like, oh yeah, I like what you do, and I'm just going to take it anyway and apply it. I don't know.
Man, I don't really know what it's going to look like. What I do think is what I think is going to really impact what happens next is how annoyed the user base gets. And part of that isn't
Fair.
just how annoyed are they with like this specific thing, but as far as I can tell, come July 1st, if I want to use Reddit on my phone, I now have to start eating ads, and I hate ads. I do not like them. I
Fair.
do
Also
not.
fair.
They really annoy me. And so, if every time I scroll a page, I see a single like an ad, then I'm I'm just not gonna browse. Right.
No, that's fair. I agree with that.
Jordy, did you want
Makes
to
sense.
pause? Jordy said pause.
No,
Did you want
that
something?
was a joke, Matt. No, continue at all.
Oh.
That was
Shit.
Hey, look, it's because you said you were gonna have to start eating ads, and so in my mind that sounded
Oh,
very
I was
similar
like,
to something
yeah.
else.
Yeah.
So I throw a. I don't know if we're gonna keep this in, but in the event that we do, for the listeners, we've got a little chat that we have going on, so we can talk to each other while we're recording. And I just said pause. Like I'm not gonna go
Yeah.
further than that. If you know, you know. All right. How about we let's shuffle
Next
on to our
topic.
second news topic.
All right. I'll just continue rambling since it's my
Good
news topic
deal.
anyways.
Yeah, I'm ready to
I
hear
like
about this one. Yeah.
More AI stuff because it's a hot topic. All right, so it's ChatGPT again, and this time a lawyer named Steven Schwartz with the firm Levido and Oberman has deep regrets because they used the generative AI to write one of their court cases for them or write some of the documentation supporting it, in which it named out 5 or 6 cases that do not exist. Now, what is the problem with this? It's basically illegal for a lawyer professionally to cite court cases that do not exist. And now there's questions of, will this person be sanctioned? I'm sure they're asking questions like, am I going to be disbarred? Is that plausible? I don't really know. For me, the real thing here is to recognize that ChatGPT lies with authority. and it lies like it really, really means it, and it really believes it because it does, right? It can't actually lie. And so I guess that's why they call it hallucinating. It hallucinates with authority. And stuff like that is really hard to catch when you get, into a multi-hundred or 1,000 word document. Um, it's really hard to be like, ooh, what was that case that was mentioned on page 36 where it referenced, this other page and so on and so forth. It's just, hard stuff. I don't know. I'd be interested if anybody else has any thoughts about this, or if it gives them any other, like, doom and gloom feelings, or maybe, the warm
So
fuzzies about something. I don't know.
on the personal side, okay, and Matt, we talked about this a couple nights ago. Just the just AI in general, and the benefits, the cons, and what people got to be
Mhm.
careful for. And dude, I'm using ChatGPT, not regularly, but pretty regularly enough when it comes to like serious document creation, or Matt, in the situation that we referenced the other day, I was using it to like summarize a meeting transcript. And I'm this is something that we constantly talk about, where we're kind of widely aware of a lot of the bad things, and the things you got to be kind of careful for when using tools like ChatGPT, especially in the professional workspace. And it's funny because I had sent something to like a group, and just to some peers, and was like, hey guys, just wanted to let you know I use ChatGPT for this, and would love your a second set of eyes just to make sure that this document makes sense. My boss had actually responded to it, was just like, hey, I don't feel like I have to say this. Like, you guys are a pretty, decently, competent group, but please make sure that before we push anything to production, like these documents are being proofread and then proofread again. And
Yeah.
so at the
Yeah.
time, I didn't. And it's funny because it's just a couple days ago, and I make I don't want to say ignorant decision, but it's like that general assumption of, oh, if I know it, then everybody else does too. And so in my mind, I was like, dang, why my boss come? I mean, come on, I'm smarter than that, right? Like, this is just common sense. Like, I know what we know about ChatGPT. Why would you not double check triple check your sources in a situation like this? So really what it comes down to for me is, I can't believe, and this may be a little heavy handed, but I cannot believe a legal professional said, you know what, this is a good idea. Let me let me
It
submit
doesn't
this.
surprise
All
me
right,
at
let me
all.
use this as a pillar to the tent that is my argument, and we'll see how far I can get, through this. It blows
Uh,
my mind. I feel like there comes like being a lawyer comes with a certain level of competence, and this is just something. I don't know, man. But then it asks the question, right? I guess this is why people are kind of not up in arms, but so questioning on this technology in the first place, because stuff like this happens, whether the lawyer thought he would, you know, nobody would notice, or what the hell. But like, it's kind of sketchy, man. I don't know. I feel like I've talked for 2 minutes too long already, but I don't know. I feel like this is a great tool, and I hate hearing that like people are getting caught up simply because they did not do a proper read through. Like, this guy probably could have saved himself. I don't
Right,
know.
but
That's what I'm saying. Was
the
it
scale is
intentional?
different.
I don't know about the story. Was it intentional, Matt, or was this like an accident?
the guy was just like, I didn't proofread this. I think he may have even said I didn't do my own research. That it was that he may have even tried to push it off onto a paralegal.
So the difference is, if it was complete negligence, like Matt's saying, where it's, I just didn't choose to proofread it, I didn't choose to do my own research, then yeah, okay, that's bad. That's just you being negligent, right? Um, but dude, it's, we don't know how it applies to all these things. So being debarred, maybe debarred because of the negligence, but I mean, I don't know if it's directly related to ChatGPT, because like, what if, like, how does it impact that sphere, right? Now, like Matt said, in large groupings of words or output, it's harder to catch those mistakes. But I mean, we've not really seen it being used in this capacity before. So there's bound to be people like this that just go, well, I mean, if it's working for everybody else, let me give it a shot.
Yeah, I'm okay. So Sean, your sentiment there it raises a question for me, and I can't remember what exactly you just said, but I just wanted to. It's the Have you guys noticed? I don't know. Are you using a very specific like ChatGPT tool, or using OpenAI, or using Microsoft Bing? If you guys are, using AI regularly.
I mean, I use ChatGPT quite regularly. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
I'm less.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I'm less of a fan of Bing. I feel like Bing is.
Stupid.
I mean, maybe a little bit. I like Bing. I like Bing for the sources. Like it's good
Right.
for the sources. But
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I,
Yeah, it is. It is. It is.
I'm doing a lot of like there is very little opinion involved sort of stuff with it. My
Yeah.
my usage really kind of falls into like, here's this error. What does this mean? Here's
Yeah.
this script. Help me clean it up. Here's this
Mhm.
script. Tell me how to do X, Y, and Z with this. And then I review
Okay.
it and I test it and I iterate and I move forward with it. So it's a little bit less like, hey, what should I get to eat for dinner tonight? Tell me a good
Right,
restaurant.
right,
You know what I
right,
mean? Like
right.
it's not
Yeah,
that
Bing-
sort of crap.
Yeah, Bing
See,
is
I've-
good at that
I've-
stuff.
I've noticed, and just this week, I was trying to edit down this transcript, and I had much more. This has not always been the case, but the responses that I got from Bing seemed much. How do I want to say user friendly? Maybe consumer is the better word. Like I think Microsoft
Polished.
knows that some. Yes, it was much more polished for what I was asking it to do. I.e., hey, take this 2,000 to 3,000 word chunk here and summarize, give me the main bullet points. And it could do that and spit them out in a way that was like, okay, I can see where it got this chunk. I could see where it got this chunk. Whereas the OpenAI side was just a little bit more, and I may be referencing that wrong, but I'm meaning like the actual ChatGPT client through the OpenAI website, right? So that one just seemed a little bit more, splotchy is what comes up to my brain. It's not a good like defining word, but I'm curious to now run through both of these kind of sites, like the different, I like being able to see the difference of how they spit these out. It's almost like talking to a different, two different people or whatever. Hey, quick thing here, just real quick.
Ruh-roh.
Brent, you mentioned the coding scripting thing. I just got a ping from Google. I think yesterday they let me know, hey, we're testing labs, and now I have like AI generative responses when I, text something into Google on my phone. And there's apparently, I don't know if ChatGPT does this, but Google is running. They've got a beta where you can help it find if you're trying to like verify or review code. There's a tool set they've launched in beta to kind of help review code and stuff. So I'll take a
pretty cool.
screenshot of the thing they sent me earlier and kick that over to you guys. I don't know if that's
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in checking it out. I haven't. I'll be honest. I did the initial Bard beta, and was very disappointed. I haven't touched it since. So
was whack.
yeah, I mean, it was
Okay.
like, nah, you guys have been beat right off the rip. So I mean, you guys
Yeah,
are gonna have to
for
give me more
sure.
than this. So,
For sure.
anyways, yeah.
Good deal.
So I'm
right.
curious the point of this though in regards to the legal system. This is where we're starting to see ChatGPT and AI creep into everything else. So I'm also curious to see what other fields start utilizing this and what the fallout is, because this is just one
Oh, man,
instance of this.
Healthcare.
So yeah, right. That was where
Healthcare.
my first thought was like, oh my gosh, what does that imply? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Hey,
Seems sketchy
ChatGPT,
to
I
me.
got this finger. I got this paper cut on my finger. Amputate. Oh, okay, cool.
It's gonna be like WebMD,
Very
the next
cool.
version of ChatMD. There it is.
Oh god.
ChatMD.
Oh god.
With
Chat
chalk, bro.
GPT MD. It's going to just be like
Yeah,
acronym
dude.
hell.
Yeah, MD ChatGPT. Just terrible.
All right. We'll leave it there. But ominous music in the background as we shift. So I guess let's move into the main topic. So let's start with Windows updates specifically, and then we can work our way outward. I kind of want to narrow down into Windows updates to be a little bit more technical. But so for every user basically that has been around in the tech world for any length of time at this point, typically hates updates. And specifically with Windows updates, what I wanted to do was go through and get the perspectives from each of you of why we think they suck so bad. And
I give you a real quick opinion on my side if you want one.
yeah, I know, because Brent, I know that you deal with this a lot, so I figured you'd have a decent amount to say about this. I deal with it a lot as well, but to a lesser degree than you do because I know you're like neck deep in it all the time. So
I mean, I feel like what has changed, because you kind of spoke to like what has devolved. In my mind, what has devolved across the entire industry. I know we're talking about Windows patches and patches in general, but really, I mean, this applies to, I feel like, development overall. Is that no one
Mhm.
tests anymore? There's no quality
Yep.
control.
Yep.
There's there's no testing anymore. Companies, like, they don't invest in a department for just purely testing like they used to. So that, combined with, when it comes to computers specifically, now don't get me wrong, this happens with a lot of other things too. Your appliances and
Mhm.
firewalls and video game consoles and your Netgear Nighthawk router that you bought from Best Buy, whatever, right? It applies to all of that. But the thing with computers is that there is so many different combinations of hardware
Mhm.
that, really, I mean, in the grand scheme of it, that's probably the one field in my mind where they have a little bit of a grace, because it's like, well, it would be impossible for them to test every single scenario because
Right.
there's millions of scenarios. So I kind of get it. However, it doesn't excuse them from pawning that off on their user base, the end user base. And more often than not, I feel like that's what happens. Anybody that works with Windows, that they have all sorts of like rings. Like, you've got your insider
Mhm.
rings, you got your insider
Mm-hmm.
preview. You can get pretty deep down that rabbit hole, and you can really, you can be testing some extremely raw codes or code bases for Windows. Um, but all that's further evidence that they're letting you opt in to be their QA, and you essentially, at least to my
Exactly.
knowledge, I don't think you really get anything back for that outside of the warm fuzzy feeling in your gut when you're like, I helped Microsoft. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh well,
Mm-hmm.
there's no kickback. I remember back in, like, way back in the day, they used to have like the like TechNet groups and all that. Like, there was groups of folks that were like certain level certified within the community and stuff, and they were getting kickbacks from Microsoft to test the products and stuff like that. Like, they were getting like keys to OSs and keys to
Right.
Office and keys to this and all that. I don't know that they do that anymore, honestly, but I could be a little bit out of touch with that one. So that's, neither here nor there. But that's my opinion on it, is that it comes down to just the vast variety of hardware and software combinations, and the fact that a lot of these companies just don't invest in testing and quality assurance like they used to.
Nope. That was my opinion as well. Like there's no QA at all. Um, and let me rephrase. Like you said, the user base is the QA. So like Microsoft pretty much did away with their QA a while ago, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
like they don't pay
Yeah.
people anymore to do QA. They now brand it as, hey users, do you want to be part of Insider and be like on cutting edge? And they frame it as like, oh, it's this privilege or status thing, when really it's just a way to like get free testing, basically. It's
Mm-hmm.
like the intern of, QA. It's
How
free
would you like your
labor.
computer
So
to explode every time you hit the enter key? Sign up.
oh no. Yeah.
Oh
I
man.
it's it's difficult to I get it, right? Like you said, there's so many different combinations, right? Different drivers, different things, different applications that you install. And as it goes through and tries to update and do all these things, it's having to do all these checks and balances as it's, updating, or, it's hard to keep it all straight, but it's like they just don't care at this point. Like genuinely, that's what it feels like
Mm,
with the operating system. As far as, we care enough to try and do some with the users, but we're pretty much just going to do it and then retroactively go back at this point
I mean,
instead of
there's
trying to
also
QA.
lack of real competition too, though. I mean, who do they have to compete with, really? You have all the Unix-based systems,
Sure.
so your various varieties of Linux and all that, and then you have Mac, and they
At a
all have
consumer level,
their
it's like two.
niches.
It's like Apple
Yeah, I mean, they all have their
Windows. So
niches, and they hold the market in many different ways. Microsoft holds the market in terms of like gaming
right.
and like the more high performance graphical processing sort of stuff, in terms of just the user base, and not being fried on hardware costs like you would be if you moved over to the Mac side.
Right.
So they know that they have that, and when you have a hold on the market like that, you don't necessarily have to be perfect at what you do. You just have to work for the most part. And when you're the only option like that, it's like, well, I'm going to sit here as the end user or the admin in this case, and I'm going to complain about these updates. But what's my alternative? There is none.
Right.
I just have to fight through
That's
it.
what you get.
Right. This is how the world works. And to be truthful, most of us here in this call, if not all of us here in this call, wouldn't have a job if Microsoft was perfect. So
Yeah, fair.
here we are.
Fair. Yeah. No, I mean, it is kind of that complaining to complain, but at the same time, it does feel a lot more unwieldy than it did before, right? At least from my perspective, as someone who's trying to stay on top of systems updates and making sure that everything's patched appropriately, like it gets frustrating when it's like, oh, well, this one thing decided to explode these 12 other things, and like if they'd done just a little bit of QA, maybe that wouldn't have happened, Yeah, Matt, I'm curious. I feel like you're waiting in the wings for something to say.
I have a very mixed feeling about updates. Software is complicated, operating systems are complicated, and coders are imperfect. That's not a dig at coders, by the way. It's just like humans are imperfect, and coding is hard and things are complicated, right? So when you have a lot of interconnected systems, it's easy for there to be cracks that aren't noticed, right? And from my perspective, there's people are always seeking those cracks, and so I'm thankful for updates, right? Because they definitely save us from problems that are existing in the code base. And maybe you could be like, oh, the code should just be perfect the first time, and I'm kind of like, show me some perfect code, basically, and then maybe we can start there. I think it is worth noting that regarding Microsoft updates, I feel like every month there's really critical security updates. Like there's an average of like 7 or 8 critical security updates per month over the last 6 months. There's an average of 2 of those critical security updates are under exploit. So I do think that's important to patch kind of early in some cases, or at least like consider it. There's also been a handful of issues in October 2022, November 2022, and then in March, April, May, and June. There have been significant like breaks in the operating system caused by some of these patches with with how Windows operates or how it communicates with the server infrastructure. I'm saying all this stuff, and the point that I'm driving at here is that I have a very complicated relationship with patches. And that is that I like them and I appreciate them, and I'm thankful that they come out. At the same time, they introduce instability or maybe instability into the environment, or potential risks of that, or even potentially new problems, right? Sometimes you patch something, but you're not paying enough attention. So you think that you fixed it and it isn't. Print nightmare. Or and Log4j, I think they had to do a couple iterations there too. Or you cause brand new holes to appear that you now have to patch, that people are getting through. And so it's I have a very love-hate relationship, as I kind of keep on dancing around. Very love-hate relationship with them. I appreciate them, but they scare me, and it's hard to know when when you want to get them out there. I guess it's important to have rings, so you minimize the kaboom, right? When things go wrong. I've also seen patches like catastrophically explode network devices.
Mhm,
Oh,
mhm.
you wanted to maintain your configuration using the vendor approved update tree? Too freaking bad, sucker.
Hope you didn't like
That's
that
a real
config.
story. That's a real story. I was following the thing, and then buried in like one of it was like go to version 1, then it was like go to version 5, and then it's like go to version 10. But at version 4, there was this note that if you had this very specific setting, that it was going to nuke your
Mhm.
policies. and nuke away it did. And it gets bad on me for not reading the version notes, but this particular client like hadn't updated their firewalls in like 5 years when we onboarded them. What do you want me to do about that? It's not my fault. I try to consume as much data as I can there, but that's a lot of information. It's really hard to catch everything, and maybe
It's a
that's
lot of
another.
information.
Yeah, maybe that's like another thought that I have
Especially
about
if you
patches. Yeah,
if you're doing multiple version hops,
Mhm.
dude, like if you're ingesting every single release note,
It's good
it's
freaking luck.
insane.
There's
Yeah,
so
like
much.
you're gonna
Yeah,
miss something somewhere.
it's they're 60 pages a piece. It doesn't
Mhm.
all apply. You have to scrape out the parts that apply, and you've got to look through 30 of them. Good luck, man.
And you have
And
to have a pretty thorough understanding of like what
yes,
each client is actually utilizing and whether or
yes,
not it
Absolutely.
actually is
yes.
applicable to
It's
what you're
very
doing.
hard.
Because
I
they use
literally
different
just
features.
faced it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I just faced this last night when I was doing maintenance on firewalls, and
Mhm.
I was only upgrading 2 firewalls, and they were both the exact same platform. So there should be really nothing out of the ordinary. One went through without issues. The other one had all sorts of DNS problems and other problems that had to be resolved after the update. And it's like, that's 2 devices. And this is after having upgraded hundreds of devices without issue. So
Mhm.
it's
Yep.
like, there's no, sometimes there's very little consistency because you're going to have that one device that has a very specific outlier variable feature enabled setting somewhere, whatever the case may be. And that is the singular thing that sets that update out of whack. Maybe it was mentioned in
Yep.
the change notes or the firmware release or whatever.
Maybe it
Maybe it
wasn't.
wasn't. Exactly.
Maybe
Maybe
nobody
it
caught it.
wasn't. Yeah,
Right.
maybe it
So
wasn't.
Seen some
that
of
hits,
that
that hits real
before.
close to home.
Love that. Mm.
That
Yeah.
turned
So
like a half-hour maintenance into a 2-hour maintenance. So
yeah,
Uh-huh.
So-
love
Love
that.
those.
So
Oh yeah.
so that's my opinion on updates, Sean, is that they're a necessary evil, and that when you're in a position when you're thinking about updates, you need to be thinking about what is the risk of
Mhm.
deploying this to my systems, and what is the risk of not deploying this to my systems. There are some updates like that Outlook freaking 0-click update where they're just like, oh, it hit their
Yep.
Outlook and then bang, they own. I mean, you just you got to send that update. Like, that's terrible.
There's no other
Like
choice, right? There
yeah,
is no
you
other
have
option.
you have to
Mhm.
send that update. There's no other option. Like, if your
So
spam filter fails you, and it probably will, you're done.
yeah,
Or
you're
it may
you're out
will.
of
I shouldn't say probably. That was rude. It may fail you.
right. Well,
All right,
so
that's my rant. Sorry.
no, this is all great, and this is why I like off the cuff because we start to get a little bit more passionate about it. But anyway, so I say these criticisms like I could do any better, right? Like
Right.
outside in, it's like, man, these things suck. But think about the scale that Microsoft is dealing with, and vendors in general, right? The scale is vastly beyond anything that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. So, like, again, I have to give a little bit of grace because it's like, well, okay, I'm presenting problems, but I don't really have a great solution. So, but all the same, it is annoying. One thing I would add to what you should think about is there any way for me to roll back? Like that should always be, if
Yes.
you're applying updates, what is my contingency plan? Because if you don't have one and you're caught with your pants down, like sometimes your contingency plan doesn't work at all, right? I mean, I've been in that position before. I want to roll back. Oop, can't. What do we do now? But you should at least have one or two and be like, well, how do I get back from whatever catastrophe this update has um, brought to light? So that would be another one I would do.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's pretty important. I think real quick, I think it is worth noting that sometimes you really won't have a
Yeah, that's fair.
rollback plan. Sometimes it is like it's a one-way street.
Mhm.
And those are really scary and
Yeah.
should be treated with a lot of caution. And
yeah.
Yes, they are.
and in those cases you need other contingency plans also, right? Like you need to understand that you're not going to roll back. You're going to restore. You're going to do an emergency restore from backup, right? Or
But
something
isn't that
other
wouldn't that
that's
constitute a contingency plan though? because that's part
Oh
of
man,
a
that's like
mitigation,
I mean,
right?
that's like a man, like I mean, that's another level, right? Usually when people talk about rollback, most cases they just mean uninstall the update, right? They don't mean
I guess. I
like
guess it depends on the
go.
severity.
Yeah, well, because restoring a virtual appliance or virtual machine is disruptive, right? You got to take it down, you got to restore
Yeah,
it
yeah,
back,
yeah.
you got to test literally everything, right? I don't know, just my 2 cents.
It's kind of really tied to the level of effort and time
Mhm.
that it would take to do whatever it
Hmm.
is. Like if you're
Yeah.
talking like just pulling out an update, I mean that could be 5 minutes. That's rolling back. But if you're doing like you
Hmm.
said, restoring a VM or something, that's going to
That's what
be
I'm talking.
probably at least an
That's a
hour. You know what I mean?
mission,
Like that's
dog.
going to be
Yeah,
Yeah,
some
that's
time
fair.
depending on what it is. If we're talking a file server, multi terabytes, it's
Ooh,
gonna be a
yeah,
little
oof.
while.
Yeah,
You know.
okay.
So it
Yeah.
really, I think level of effort is where I would draw the line in the
hmm
sand on
yeah.
rollback versus rebuild, essentially.
Yeah.
Yep, I
Jordy,
agree with that.
I'm curious, from your perspective, Windows updates, because I know it's a bit different for where you are
Yeah.
currently. So
Jordy,
I'm
haven't you
So
curious
had
what you.
one hit you personally recently that like did something weirdly with your machine?
And so it's funny. One of you guys was saying something about it might have been you, Britt, like not 10 minutes ago, talking about, "Hi, would you like to have your machine blow when you press enter?"
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it just made me so. I've never. I love being a part. I'm Microsoft's and every other software company that does this. I'm the guy they want. I'm the ideal user. Okay, because I'll sign up for everything. I'm an early adopter. You know what I mean? I have to have my hands on everything as early as I can get it. So to Brent's comment, I joined one of the beta rings, for the Windows Insider program for the PC side of things a couple months ago, and probably maybe a little closer to a year, but it was terrible. And I had access to like some of the very early rings. Like I've been a part of Microsoft's Insider program through Xbox for probably close to 10 years now. So I don't know if that's just how it works, but I mean, I had access to really high rings. I said, you know what? I work and play on this machine. I'm here for 8 to 12 hours a day. You know what I mean? Monday through Friday. I can't. This just can't. I can't have anything go wrong with my computer. And it wasn't immediate, but yeah, it was a slow. It was a slow death over a couple of months, and I've had to reload Windows several times before just completely backing out of that beta ring. So I can't tell
Wow.
you that all of the problems were specifically tied to the beta updates that I was getting, but I haven't had any of them since I've reloaded and backed out of the ring. So yeah, I mean, just a pain in the ass. As far as professional stuff is concerned, I do have a question for you guys, and I work. I mean, I don't want to say I work closely with Brent, but whenever he does, kind of get into his big update seasons, and he's worried about, I mean, not really just updates, but anything in general that he's touching. There's normally a general conversation that's going on of, "Hey, Jordan, I'm updating this stuff, so if there are any issues, let me know. This is what these issues would look like." So, and it's really simple. And most times we don't have any issues. So I'll knock on wood. So hopefully that continues. And it seems to be really easygoing just from my perspective, and I would hope my team's perspective as well, because like I said, we're not getting many user complaints. We're not getting, I'm not getting any complaints or hearing anything from my guys, and that's been, a running theme since I've been at the company. So I don't know, maybe Brent's just worth his weight in gold as far as vetting his sources and making sure that these updates are good to push to prod before he does. And I guess that's the magic of you technical workers in the first place, right? Is so that guys like me don't really have to stress about stuff. So I do though, however, my question is really concerned or connected to our main point, which is, and I've known this for a minute because there are jokes every time we have big, Windows announcements that are coming out, or like even when Windows 11 was announced, it was like, well, what's this going to do to our client base over long years of time? And so if it is so, I don't want to say if it's so unliked, right? But if this is such a massive, pain in the ass as far as needing to vet like that the updates work before you push them to prod, and one set of your clients maybe in one business niche, and the other set of clients may not, so you may have to be kind of keeping multiple tabs on different Windows versions, just up and running so that you're not messing anything up. How do you guys, if you guys don't see, I don't want to say see the point, but if it's a pain in the ass to you, it's probably going to be a pain in the ass to the clients to an extent, right? So how do you deal with clients who may not necessarily want to push through updates? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? If you guys ever had to work with users who just, I don't know, hate updates for whatever reason, maybe they're getting complaints that users don't like their computers being reset or restarted over the night. Like, how do you
Sure.
guys work through that? If it's something that you hate doing already, you have to kind of act as that salesman, right? And as that middle point, if you're the technical, first point of contact for the
You
client. So how
present
does that
them
work for you guys?
you present them with the alternative. What's the alternative?
Yep.
And the alternative is usually
Ransomware.
you're gonna get hacked. That's what's gonna
Mhm.
happen. This is gonna blow up.
It's a
It's
very
really good
easy
incentive for them to play ball.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Okay. And I imagine
also
that's like
depends-
you can
That's-
you can attribute like a lot of that can be the obstacle or consequence to a lot of things that we're touching, right? Like hey client, if you don't do this, then let me just show you what you're going to keep dealing with, and it's either going to be this or the problem's going to get worse or whatever. Okay. Those are really easy
The
answers. You didn't need that
unfortunate
much of a
reality.
setup.
I'll let Matt and Sean jump in too, just real quick. But I think the unfortunate reality of all of our positions, to some extent, is that we work in a proactive business, but more often than not, we're doing reactive work because
Right. Okay.
these companies are just everything we're maintaining for clients and everything that we're touching generally is having so many things that they're trying to patch out, so many vulnerabilities and exploits that they're trying to patch out, that we never really have the true opportunity to be proactive about anything because we're always reacting to the next vulnerability for something. So anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there real quick.
Yeah, and I was also going
point,
to say
Sherman.
it depends on client apps, right? So if you have a company that's in construction and running AutoCAD, and this update, like you take a test bed and go, okay, we know this is a production machine, we're going to test this out. So again, it's also in how you plan out with each individual client, right? Like you have general plans that you work with, but you may know that there's a particular app or program that they use that if you update, it may go sideways. So it depends on even down to what that client is doing and what applications they use at a granular level. So, I mean, it's difficult to, without sort of having a test plan and going, okay, we're going to have a dedicated machine, or we're going to have a dedicated group, or, something along those lines. It's just, it's difficult. They have to do it, right? Because now Windows is pushing end of life even harder. So you have to stay on top of it, or otherwise, you get behind to the point where your end of life, you're not getting security updates anymore, which is an even greater security risk, which Windows is like, that's why they're pushing so hard, because they said, well, you're either going to update or you get vulnerable real quick. And so now they don't have a choice. So, and that was going to be a point or a question that I had for everyone is, do you think that the state of updates is directly correlated to the landscape of vulnerabilities now and how quickly they're coming out because of how quickly everything's progressing? Does that question make sense? Like, do you think that the quality of the updates is directly impacted by the mass of attackers that have sort of presented
Absolutely.
themselves? You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
like the
that makes
quality
sense.
decreased
Yeah.
because there's just so much more volume, it feels like, than there used to be. Like, you're hearing of people getting hit every single day at this point, and like everybody has a target on their back. And so now, with like Matt was saying earlier, you patch one vulnerability and then you introduce three more, or there's another vector you didn't see about, or it's been buried for however long. So I'm curious if everyone kind of is in consensus that the overall breadth of attack now is so vast that it's just like it's hard to keep that QA with how fast everything's getting hit.
Can I circle back to George's question real quick about
Yeah,
how do we sell clients, and then I do have an opinion about the correlation between, speed of hack and speed of update also.
Give it to me, Matt.
So, Jordy, to answer your question, what do you do when somebody says, "Well, I don't see the value in updating," or "I don't want to update"? I think that when you're talking to a business leader, you should approach it perhaps from like a financial perspective. How does it financially impact their business? Okay, so updates are impactful in a negative way. They create downtime, and they decrease employee morale, right? And they're a general nuisance, right? But if you don't update, you may see a multi-day outage. And I like to tell the story of when I had a client once that had a 2-week outage. It was because their server died, but let's say instead it was because they got ransomware and their backup system wasn't very mature.
Right.
Like it wasn't very mature right now. I mean, ransomwares happen, servers die, whatever. Same thing to me. And so they weren't patched, and their server died. Let's just say. And I was sitting in the office with their CEO. There's a car dealership with like 40 or 50 people. And, we were up there for a couple weeks. We got to know each other pretty well. We spent a lot of time with each other over the last like 2 weeks, basically. And he goes, "Matt, I'm losing $100,000 a day because of this outage. I can't process he goes, I can't process orders. He goes, I can't order parts for repairs. I can't like execute warranties." He said, I have to we did have to like reinstall a bunch of operating systems because of like compatibility stuff and legacy software and imports and new software and things like that. It was a mess. And what if instead I had sat down with him, that's theoretically, like he was a new client because he had been using somebody who was just some local dude working IT at his like off hours. And what if instead I had sat down with him and said, "Hey man, what if I get you, a good backup system? A server that isn't going to die, or in this, we'll say for our theoretical situation, we work on the patching and it's going to create downtime and things like that. But what if, instead you don't lose somewhere in the neighborhood of like $1 million because you suffer an outage for like a week or two?" And, that's how I would present it, is that a serious outage may cost you, what does a week's worth of revenue look like? For this guy, it was seriously like $700,000. And I think that speaking that language goes a long way. So Jordy, that is my answer, is think about the impact to the business, opportunity, cost, loss, and, being unable to process, widget makings or whatever you do.
I would also tack on PR, because now
Yeah,
your
it looks
client
ugly.
base they're looking at you going,
Nobody wants to work
"Why
with
is
you.
your system down? Why is this taking
Yeah.
so long?"
Mm.
You've now impacted the trust of your
Mhm.
users, and that also damages
Yeah.
revenue.
Yeah. So turn it into money. Sean, as for speed of updates and speed of hacks and all of that, I think that Microsoft's trying to gain some control over the updates and the update process and what they have to manage. I feel like XP hung on forever.
Sure.
XP released in like 2006 or something like that. I don't remember when. It was like it was somewhere around there. And I feel like I was working on XP machines like, man, I don't know, into like 2015 or something ridiculous. I mean, same thing. Windows 7 I feel like it hung on forever.
Yeah, I was about to say, Windows 7 feels like it really wasn't that long ago. I mean, really, truly, for it to actually, and I think, man, it's only recently. I mean, I know big companies that were still had Windows 7 machines. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So I think that part of it is setting a new culture. And that culture is we can't reasonably support this forever. Get over it. And I mean, honestly, I'm inclined to say that's pretty reasonable. And I guess my personal
I
hope,
agree.
my personal hope is that we will see, um, I don't know, improvements. I don't really like have any quantifiable numbers about what that looks like, right? Um, I mean, most of the patches that we're looking at, month over month, and we're looking at an average of like 7 or 8 critical patches, with one of them being under known exploit. I mean, that means that there's got to be a lot of internal stuff that's occurring. And so, what does an improvement look like? There's a look like more internal stuff, more QA. I mean, gosh, man, I don't really know. I just don't feel like I have the perspective.
And that's
Does
what I
that
was
make
saying
sense?
earlier. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
agree wholeheartedly. And that's why I mentioned the fact that, yeah, I can gripe all I want, but I don't really
What are
have
you
a
gonna do
better
about it?
solution. I mean, they have like billions of devices, man. And they
Yeah.
all
But
they all have holes. They all have security vulnerabilities, or
mhm,
and they're all interacting with software in a different way. A billion.
mhm.
Just think about printers. Printers by themselves,
I hate
and all of the
printers.
updates. You know what I mean? And then, you've got Windows updates that'll go and look for specific drivers for like your Intel or your drive or your video cards. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's so many different facets. It's like, yes, but think about the fact that it works at all. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
feel
know.
that.
I
I
tend to
will
take
say,
middle ground regardless, but
I will say, I personally think part of this is of like this increased control is that there will be a more contained playing field to operate in, and maybe the bad guys will take some more L's because things there's just less playing field to cover.
define that. Define what you mean.
Well, if I have to cover, let's say I have to manage 30 versions of some piece of software versus like 10 versions of some piece of software,
Oh, okay,
there's
okay.
just a lot. There's just a lot more to manage there. And if I mean, that's 3 times as much, maybe.
Yeah.
So I feel like if like the smaller of an area that you have to like shine a spotlight over, maybe it'll be a little easier to find things. Just my 2 cents.
No, I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah. So, anybody else? Anybody have any thoughts on updates in general? So we've kind of hit primarily on Windows, but I mean we've kind of into the broader spectrum as well. But I'm curious if anybody has anything else. I mean, because this is primarily geared towards the consumer base and business base. I mean, you still got, like Brent mentioned way back, Unix, Linux, that kind of stuff, and Apple as well. So, but I think this holds true for the updates in the broader scheme. Like, how do you deal with it? Because I mean, there's millions of Apple devices as well. There's plenty of Linux servers. But I
I'd
think at
say
the
on the consumer level, sometimes you just don't have a choice.
right,
I mean, like
Yep.
let's say like a video game console, a lot of times, like if there's an update to your Xbox or your PlayStation, you're going to get it before you can get back online and play your
mm,
game. That's just the way it is.
Yep. Bet.
With live service games, guess what? You're going to get the update, or you're not going to play your live service game. Too bad. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I mean, 9 times out of 10, don't get me wrong. I mean, you want the update, although
Yeah,
there
you
is
do.
once again there's that inherent. Well, they could break something with this update that I didn't have to deal with in the first place. A lot of times you'll download an update and all of a sudden you're getting bad frames. Your performance is now tanked for some reason.
right.
And that's because they changed something in the back end, how it's rendered or whatever the case may be. So updates are not always great, and they're not always great for everybody. Because once again, we're down that whole rabbit hole of, everybody's got a different configuration of hardware and software and stuff like that.
Hmm.
That's the reason why the console space is still as popular as it is, because people can just buy this system and have a really great gaming experience without having to tinker with 300 pieces of software and 300 pieces of different hardware and the various drivers that tie all those things together. So it's
Mm.
totally reasonable to, for someone to argue, the whole console versus PC gaming and all that. Like, I get it, man. I have days where I jump in the computer and all I want to do is game, and I log in and I try to game and I have nothing but tech issue after tech issue after tech issue. And
Yeah.
guess what?
Yep.
I don't feel like gaming anymore. I'm frustrated and I just want to turn the computer off and go to bed. I'm just done with it.
Heard.
So
Yeah, I know
Yep.
Jordy's a
to where on the
big
console
proponent of the
side,
console space.
yeah, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you hit the button, you go. Not, most of the time, I'm not saying consoles are perfect either. They have a few issues here and there too, but the likelihood of it is much, much less on that side because they are developing and maintaining a very limited ecosystem and
Mhm.
configuration, spec sheet of hardware. And because of that, they are able to deliver a much more consistent and kind of straightforward experience to the consumer. So anything that's like a closed loop like that, that's the reason why Macs are
Yep.
a selling point a lot of the time is because they're
Mhm.
smooth, man. They work. They very rarely is Apple pushing a bum update. Usually it is working and it's consistent and it's, if anything, you're getting gains from the updates. You're getting features. You're getting better performance in this app, better performance in that. So once again, that's how they stand out in that space. They deliver really slick hardware. They deliver, here's 3 variations of this laptop you can buy with very small variations in terms of like RAM and hard drive space and all that good stuff. And then everything else is the same. And that's how they make the software as good as it is because they don't have to worry about all these other configurations.
Right.
That's why building a Hackintosh, if anybody doesn't know what that is, that's where you literally, you do essentially a bare bones or bare metal PC build, and then you try to get the Mac OS working on it. So essentially like a Windows machine or hardware intended for Windows or Linux, and you try to get Mac OS working on it. It's very hard to do because the compatibility for the hardware is super super limited, so you have to buy very specific pieces, and even that is not guaranteed to work. So
Right.
I don't know, man. It's just crazy. It's we've gone down that we've gotten, the industry's gotten so big and there's so much customization in it that it's almost been to our detriment to some extent, because it's just tough. It's tough to keep everything up to date. It's tough to keep things working consistently across, multiple updates, whether it's weekly updates, monthly updates, whatever the case may be.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. And I'm glad you brought up the sort of singular nature of Apple because that was one thing I did want to touch on is the difference between the two is how isolated that ecosystem is and why that experience is so smooth as it is. Because they say we're not going to play ball, like you're going to do it our way or that's it.
Right.
And that's kind of how they do that QA is like, well, no, you're either going to do it this way or you don't get to play. So
Right.
those fantastic points.
Yeah. When you limit the toys that are brought to the sandbox,
Yeah,
you are, you're kind of controlling the creativity a little bit. You're controlling the variables a little
That's what
tiny
I was
bit.
talking about. That's what I'm talking
Mhm.
about, man. And once
Yeah.
you can do that, you're you're I kind of want to say one step ahead of the game because that isn't quite right. But it does feel like it once again levels that playing field just a little bit more. Maybe like it tips it
Mhm.
just a bit more in your advantage, right? And that's the real goal against, you know, uh I guess adversaries. Yeah, it's the real goal against adversaries is to continue stacking it in your continue stacking that deck uh to your betterment, right? And to your adversary's detriment. So when they come looking, they just run into problem and problem and problem, and the goal is to exhaust their resources, to a point where they move on, can't get in, because they do not have sufficient resources, etc. I guess that's just one
Right.
way of looking at the problem.
Yeah. Totally agree.
well, I think this is a good place to stop unless anybody else has any other points to make. Going once.
I guess
I
yeah, I got one. I
Okay.
got one. It's kind of a negative one, but I do think it's worth being mindful that sometimes updates can be used to deliver threats through supply chain attacks.
Mm.
Oh boy.
And as you as you are receiving updates and hit that button that says yes, auto update me, or you just don't get any say in the matter, you should be mindful of that. Some big ones that come to mind are the 3CX hack, which we have discussed in recent episodes, where 3CX got owned via supply chain update, who then owned several other companies that were their clients, all from North Korea, or the SolarWinds hack, right? Another supply chain update where many companies were affected via legitimate updates. So it's just something to be mindful of, right? Risk, they're good. I mean, like, you have to, like, it's weird, you have to apply the updates, but you also have to be aware that by doing these things you have to do, you may also introduce an adversary directly into your environment. So I would say, while you have to do this, it's important, and it's usually okay, it's important to not become complacent and just be mindful of what's happening around update cycle times.
Yep.
I'll get off my soapbox.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. I think so. To summarize, updates are a necessary evil, right? You got to have them.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
where we are in technology space now, there's just no way to keep yourself even remotely secure enough without them. But
Yeah,
we're
absolutely.
we're also looking at a different landscape now because of
Mhm.
how fast things are progressing, and the vectors of attack are ever widening. So, um, I think it's just a good reminder to be wary and introduce that change control, and be mindful of those things, and maybe not, like you said, get complacent when you are doing these updates and just assuming that they work, or that nothing bad's going to happen. I'm going to hit apply now and go back to bed.
Mhm. Mhm.
Make sure that you're paying attention. I mean, we're only human for now, so there's only so much we can do, but just making sure you're staying on top of it, and not letting it get too far out of control. But well, gentlemen, I really appreciate it. This has been awesome. I think we're going to wrap up here,
Mhm.
but everyone, please come discuss in the Discord. Tell us bad update experiences. What your thoughts are on updates, and we're always happy to chime in and help. And we've even had some people come into the tech support channel, be like, "Hey, I've updated these things and things aren't working. What should I do now?"
Yeah, come
Mhm.
talk to us
So
about updates in Discord. We want to help you
yeah,
solve your
Yeah,
problems.
we do.
yeah,
Yep.
Yeah,
Jordy
we
will
mean
help
that.
you specifically.
yeah. Jordy
No,
specific-
I
I
Yeah.
will, but
will.
Have
Jordy
fun,
will.
I
Jordy.
will tap one of the guys to help you out. That's my job. It's been a good episode. Thanks, Sean. Good topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent.
All right.
Yeah, I liked it.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, folks.
We'll see you guys.
Later.